this matrix given is quite simple there. What you can do is keep the first row as it is. I was wondering why is that nobody went for other type of row operations and got some other. We will see. What we'll do is first we'll add -1 times the first row to the second row. What we'll do is in the second row, since we have the same two entries, we can try reducing the second row first two entries to 0. Okay. What we'll do is R2 plus -1 into R. That is, you're multiplying the first row with -1 and adding it to R2. Or you can simply write it is just R2 minus R1. Okay. You're subtracting row 1 from row 2, but if we go with the actual row operations, what you're doing is you're multiplying the first row with the -1 and adding it to second row, which is elementary row operation of type 1. Remember, first row remains as it is, second row will be 0, 0, 0. Okay, even the third entry becomes 0. Here 5, and then 5, then 1, 2, 5, 2, 7. Okay, then after that, we can also try reducing this one, the last one, to 0 by going for R3 plus -1 times R1. It is 1, 1, 2, 1, 5. Second row also as it is. And you can make the third row 0, 0, 1, 3, 1, 2. Okay. And so here it looks like when I look at this final matrix, which all of you have got, you have exchanged the second row and the third row. Okay, we'll do that. R2 interchanged with R3, 1, 1, 2, 1, 5, 0, 1, 3, 1, 2, and then 0, 0, 0, 5, 5. And you can multiply the last row with the 1 by 5. 1 by 5 is a scalar. Multiply R3 with 1 by 5, you'll get 1, 1, 2, 1, 5. I'm wondering, how did you know that you have to reduce this to 1, or you have to interchange the second row and the third row and all that? Why didn't you leave, second row wherever it is and third row as it is? And then, so we got this. Then you can perform R1 plus -1 times R2. Okay, do that. Or it is like R1 minus R2, subtracting second row from the first. So you'll get 1, 0, -1, 0, 3, correct. And then I'll do it in single step, both the operations. The next operation should be R2 plus -1 times R3, if I'm not wrong. 0, 1, 3 will remain as it is, 0 and 1. Okay, right. So we get that final matrix. Okay. So if you're very comfortable working with the row operations, you can do two of the row operations in one single step also, but see that you don't make any mistake. Okay, so if I consider the second operation here, R3 plus -1 times R1, that could have been done here itself. That is, you have to subtract R1 from R2 as well as R1 from R3. Do that in one single step, but see that you don't make any mistake. Now, I want the answer from someone. Why did you go for interchanging of the two rows at this point? Any particular reason, or you had noted the answer from the last slide and then you tried getting that matrix, is it? I want the genuine answer. Did you note down the answer in the last slide, in the last class, and then you wanted to get that matrix, so you interchanged, or you had some other reason for interchanging R2 and R3 here? I'm asking why this row 0, 0, 1, 1 was not in the second position. Now it is in the last position. Why is that? Reshma? I'll ask you only. Reshma?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Why did you do that?
And we have 3 row operation condition, so I use it.
I didn't get you. What is it? 3 row operations, you wanted to use that.
There were 3 operations.
Okay. You didn't know about the particular form which you had to come to, or you had written down the answer which I gave.
We already studied this matrix in last 2 times by using.
In UG, yeah, that's what I wanted to know. Did you had a particular form where the final matrix should be in, or you will simply apply the row operations?
Just simply applied operations.
Okay, there is
I
no
don't
final
remember.
form you have learnt in UG. No, right? So if anybody knows anything about that, you can answer me, like how the final matrix should look like. Otherwise, you see, instead of doing this operation, if I just omit that, then the final matrix which I get will look like 1 0 minus 1 0 3, and then second row will be 0 0 0 1 1. Last row would be 0 1 3 0 1. Okay, only if I do this R2 interchanging R3 at some point, then I would get this matrix. Otherwise, I may not get the same matrix. I may have some other rows there. Okay? But other operations, since the entries are very clear here, so you will easily make it 0. You can easily guess that which entries can be. So other operations, everybody may do the same. In this case, especially in this case, other matrices, again, you may apply some other operations compared to your friends. But here it is, quite easy to guess which operation can make the entry 0 and all that. I was wondering about interchanging of these two. Was there any particular reason for that, or no? Because since there are many possibilities of coming to the final matrix, where all rows may not be in the same order, or I might apply some other operations and you may come up with some other row operation. Just to see that everybody will follow one standard procedure, or everybody will stop at the same point, we have one standard definition being imposed here at this point. That is, we will try to give the definition of one matrix where everybody will try to come to. Okay, that is called as a row echelon matrix that we are going to define. So I was wondering whether anybody knew about that row echelon matrix. That's why I asked that question. Okay. So the row echelon matrix will define now. Let me just check whether they put a dash over there in definition or row echelon. No. Okay. It's called as a row echelon matrix. Some read it as row echelon matrix also, but I read it as row echelon matrix. It's any m by n matrix, and m by n matrix, so order can be anything. An m by n matrix, say, what we'll call it as some m, is called a row echelon matrix if it has the following properties. How this matrix looks like, that we will define now in terms of few points. Okay, some 2-3 points we'll give there. That matrix should look like this, and this is going to be the form to which you will try to come to after applying row operations. So you call a matrix to be a row echelon form, a row echelon matrix, if it has the following properties. The first condition is that if row I, okay, I'll write row I, if row I of M is 0, that is, it's a 0 row. It's an m by n matrix, so it has exactly m rows. If there is some row I which is a 0 row, that is, the entire row has only zeros, then row J is 0 for all j greater than I. Try bringing the picture of such a matrix in front of you. If there is some row which is a zero row consisting of only the zeros, how many entry each row has here? Look at the number of columns. It has n columns. So each row will have exactly n entries. If there is some row I, some ith row, which has all zeros, so it has exactly n zeros in it, then the first condition says that any row j where j is greater than I, that is, you take all the rows which appear below that ith row, all of them should be zeros. So this is one condition. Here it is j greater than, okay, j greater than. So if row I is 0, row j should also be 0 for all j greater than I. So if the second row is 0 in a given matrix, the third row, fourth row, etc. So all the rows which appear below that 0 row should also be zeros. That is one condition for a matrix to be called as a row echelon matrix. Second is, if row I is non-zero, what do we mean by a non-zero row? Zero row is a row which has all zeros in it. When we say that a row I is non-zero, it should have at least one non-zero entry in it. Correct? To say that a matrix or a row is non-zero, there should be at least one non-zero entry. Not that all the entries must be non-zero. No, at least one entry should be non-zero. If row I is non-zero, then definitely there is one non-zero entry there. Then the first non-zero entry of row I is 1. It should be integer 1 and is called a pivot. You call it as a pivot of that row. Okay. If there is a non-zero row, what do you mean by non-zero row? There is at least one non-zero entry. When you move along that row from left to right, that's how we read a row, right? Just like Reshma read the 3 rows. When you look at that row, the first non-zero entry that you get should always be 1, integer 1. And that first non-zero entry of a row is called as a pivot. It should always be 1, no other number. I'll go back to, I think I erased it. No, it's here. Yeah. So look at this matrix. The first row is non-zero row. Look at the final matrix here, this one. So the first row is a non-zero row, and the first non-zero entry is in the first position, which is 1. So this is the pivot of the first row. In this row, first entry is 0, but the first non-zero entry here in this row, in the second row, is 1. So that's a pivot. If it was something like 4, I would be multiplying the second row by 1 by 4 so that I'll get 1 here. Okay, so that is a pivot of the second row. In the third row, you have 3 zeros, but still the first non-zero entry is 1. So this is a pivot. If there is a 0 row, there's a 0 row, and all the rows below that should also be zeros. So that's the second condition. Third condition is the pivot of row I plus 1. If you don't want to write it as, everywhere here in the definition I've written row I or row I plus 1 or row j, you can also write ith row or jth row, anything. So you should know I'm referring to the ith row or the jth row here. Here I'm considering row I plus 1, that is I plus 1th row. The pivot of row I plus 1, that is I plus 1th row, should be eraser. Okay, next. Row I plus 1 should be to the right of the pivot of row I. Maybe I can write here, if when a pivot will exist in a row, only when that row is non-zero. Remember that the pivot of row I plus 1 should be to the right of the pivot in row I. Hope you can analyze that. Maybe I'll mention it here. If row I plus 1 is non-zero, if row I plus 1 is non-zero, only when a row is non-zero, you will get pivots there. If row I plus 1 is non-zero, then the pivot of row I plus 1 should be to the right of the pivot in row I. When you compare the two simultaneous rows, row I and row I plus 1, okay, row I plus 1's pivot, the first non-zero entry should be to the right. Now again look at the previous matrix here, the last matrix. There is a pivot here, and look at the pivot of the next row. It is to the right side, right? It is to the right side of this one. If I take the pivot of the previous row, first row, pivot of the second row is to the right side. And if I look at the pivot of the third row, it is to the right side of the pivot of the second row. So that's how the pivots should be. Pivot in the next row should be to the right of the pivot in the previous row. That's the third condition. And the last condition is, fourth condition is, all entries above the pivot above A I will write, because one matrix will have many pivots. Each row may have a pivot. So I'll write all entries above a pivot. I change the slide. All entries above a pivot must be zeros in that particular column. Okay, in that particular column. Again, we'll look at that final matrix which we got for that matrix which I had given in the last class. Here, this is the matrix. Look at the pivot in the, I don't have to look at the first row, because first row is the first row. I don't have any row above that. If I look at the pivot of the second row, this is a pivot, entry above that is 0, right? Here, there is a pivot here in the third row. This was 1, remember, this is 1. What are the entries above that in that column? 0, 0. So this should happen. All entries above the pivot are zeros. What about the entries below the pivot? What about the entries below the pivot? Can someone tell me? I've given as the fourth point, entries above the pivot must be zeros. Entries below the pivot, yeah, somebody has written the answer there. Suresh's answer is right. Entries below the pivot are also zeros, but we don't have to write it separately as a fifth point. That is not required, because entries below the pivot are zeros. That is already clear from the third point, right? What does the third point tell you? If row I plus 1 is non-zero, the pivot of the I plus 1th row lies to the right of the pivot in the ith row. And what is a pivot? Pivot is going to be the first non-zero entry. So when you say that this pivot has to be to the right side, so you cannot have same column having two pivots. If pivot is here, the immediate below entry cannot be 1, because it should always lie to the right side. When you say the pivot is always to the right side, it's understood that below a pivot entry is 0. Okay, so we don't have to mention it again in the definition. So we have 4 points. An M by N matrix M is called a row echelon matrix if it has the following properties. First one is, if row I of M is 0, then row J should be 0 for all J greater than I. Okay, and if row I is non-zero, then the first non-zero entry of row I is 1 and is called as a pivot. It should always be 1, it is called as a pivot. And if row I plus 1 is non-zero row, okay, it's a non-zero row, it will have a pivot in it. The first non-zero entry, which is 1, it's a pivot. That pivot should be to the right of the pivot in the previous row, that is row I. And the last point says, all the entries above a pivot must be zeros. This is a row echelon matrix. Generally, we may try to draw how a row echelon matrix looks like. Roughly, I don't know the order, so I'll write it in some box here. It's a matrix, and we usually don't write a matrix inside a box, but just consider this as a matrix with m rows and n columns. If I assume that the first row is 0 in this matrix, what will happen? Then all the rows must be zeros if M has to be a row echelon matrix. If M is a row echelon matrix, you know the first condition which says that if there is a 0 row, all the rows below that must be zeros. So if the first row happens to be 0, the only possibility is it should be a 0 matrix. I'll not take that case. Let me take the first non-zero entry in the first position itself. So this is a pivot. After that, there could be any entry. No worries. So there could be any entry possible. Okay. So there could be anything. But if your second row has say 1 in the fourth place, here I cannot have any arbitrary entry star. Here it must be 0. Why? The fourth point says that entry above a pivot is always 0. Okay. And then after that, after this one, again, there could be anything. Any number could be there. And if it happens that, the third row has a 1 present here, if it has a 1 here, then this entry is 0, this entry is 0. What about the first row? These entries could be anything again. Okay. This is how it goes. And since this one is a pivot, everything to the left of it is already 0. Here also, everything to the left of that one is 0. This is how a row echelon matrix looks like. Okay. Everything 0. Say there is a 0 here, there is 1 there. That makes all these entries arbitrary. But this row, the one where the 1 is present, that should have only zeros above that. And I can have anything here. Here also there could be anything. I'll take the last row to be zeros, 0 row. If there was another row present, what it should be, since this nth row is already 0, if there is any other row below that, it should also be 0. So this is how normally a row echelon matrix looks like. If some row is 0, all rows below that must be 0 rows. The first non-zero entry is always 1. Okay, and the pivot of the next row is to the right of the pivot in the previous row, and all the entries above a pivot must be 0. So this is the look, or this is how a row echelon matrix looks like. And whenever we apply a row operation, just to see that everybody will come down to the same matrix, we will take that row echelon matrix as the standard. That is, if you apply row operation in any order, instead of making the second row entry 0, you might have first done these row entries reduced to 0, or you might have applied the operation on R3 first. Here I have applied the operation on R2 first. You might have done the second operation first. So in any order you perform the row operations, finally you try coming down to the row echelon form. You try reducing the matrix to the row echelon form. Okay. You see that the final matrix is a row echelon matrix, or you are trying to reduce the given matrix to the row echelon form, so that everybody will come down to one single form itself. So if it happens that you have not done this operation R2 interchange with R3, what will happen? This row 0, 0, 0, 5, 5, this would be here, and then in the final matrix, this last row would be the second row, and this would be the last row. But what will happen? You see that the pivot of this row will be to the left side if these rows were in other positions, like if the existing third row was second row, and if the existing second row was the third row, then you see that the pivots will not satisfy the condition required in the definition of a row echelon matrix. So you need to interchange the second and the third rows. So you will know finally what is the matrix at which you have to land at. Okay, so that is a row echelon form. And as we know from the previous result, whatever matrix you have in the simplest possible form, you solve the system corresponding to that matrix, and the solutions of that system will give you the solutions for the given system also. So if I now take that same matrix, I'll go back to that slide. If I take this matrix, this is A, this is, I'll take, okay, what I'll do is, I need that matrix, so what shall we do? If I start using eraser, then there is quite a lot of work that I have to do. If I erase everything, everything will go. Then somebody has to dictate me the matrix again, because I don't have that matrix with me. So this is the matrix. Using that, we will write down a system of equations. What I'll do is, I'll consider the last column of that matrix as the given column vector B. So I'm trying to write down the system now, Ax equal to B. Okay, I'll write down the system Ax equal to B. This matrix is also needed, so I'll leave it as it is. The final one is also needed for us. Here, I'll call these 4 columns together, the block as A and this as B. So suppose the question is, solve the system of equations. I'll write down the system. x1 plus x2 plus x3 plus x4. No, 2x3 plus x4 equal to 5. x1 plus x2 plus 2x3 plus 6x4 equal to 10. And x1 plus 2x2 plus 5x3 plus 2x4 equal to 7. Suppose this was the system given to you to solve. Then you try writing it in the matrix form. When you try writing it in the matrix form, this column will contain x1, x2, x3, x4, and the column on the right hand side will be 5, 10, 7, which I have called as B here. Okay, this column will appear on the right side. What is the coefficient matrix A? The coefficient matrix A, because I wrote the system from that matrix itself. You check this, you can cross verify. The first row is that 1 into x1 plus 1 into x2 plus 2 into x3 plus 1 into x4 equal to 5. That gives me the first equation. So to get the second equation, I should take the row 1, 1, 2, 6. That is our second row here. And the third row is, of course, 1, 2, 5, 2. So if the system is given to you in terms of 3 equations and 4 unknowns, you try writing it in the matrix form like this. And then this is our A and this is B. And whenever we have to solve a system, what do? We compute the augmented matrix. We write down the augmented matrix. What is augmented matrix? I have to write the matrix A as one block, and I have to combine B as the the second block. And that is precisely this matrix, right? I would get this. And solving Ax equal to B is same as solving A dash x equal to B dash, where A dash B dash is the matrix that you get after applying row operations on the matrix AB. Now, this was one single matrix for us initially in the last problem which I gave you. This you have reduced by applying row operations to this form, the simplified form. So here, what is our A dash? Remember, I have to separate the last column. This last column B has been changed to a new column B dash, and the matrix A has been changed to A dash. So solving the given system, that is here, Ax equal to B, is equivalent to solving the new system, A dash x equal to B dash. What are the equations I get? Using eraser is a problem here. So what is that I get? What are the equations? Now the equations will be quite simpler because you have many of them being zeros. So what will be the first equation? That is, I'm writing down now 1, 0, minus 1, 0, 0, 1, 3, 0, that is A dash, 0, 0, 0, 1 into x1, x2, x3, x4 equal to 3, 1, 1. So solving the given system Ax equal to B is same as solving the new system now A dash x equal to B dash. So how do you solve this? Write down the equations. If you look at what is the third equation here, you do that once on your own later. Okay. Use the given matrix earlier. Take the first 4 columns together and call it as the matrix A, and the last column you call as B. You're trying to solve Ax equal to B. First combine A and B together, come to the row echelon form, then write the new system A dash x equal to B dash. Now the first 2 I'll write later, but your last equation is just x4 equal to 1, right? 0 into x1 plus 0 into x2 plus 0 into x3 plus 1 into x4, that gives you x4 equal to 1. If I write the second equation, that would be 0 into x1 plus 1 into x2, so I'll get x2 plus 3 into x3 and 0 into x4, that's equal to 1 here. Okay, and the first equation is x1 minus x3 equal to 3. So we have 2 equations here. What we'll do is we will give an arbitrary value to x3. We have two equations in three unknowns now. There is x1, there is x3. Here there is x2, there is x3. We will be giving some arbitrary value a, where a is some real number, to x3. If I give an arbitrary value a to x3, from here I would get x1 is equal to 3 plus a. A could be any number of your choice, any real number. So you have infinitely many choices. So giving value to x3, you will find out x1, that is 3 plus a. What is x2 now? It is 1 minus 3 into a, because here also you have x3. Okay, so now your solution will be, what is the solution to the system a dash x equal to b dash? The solution is, first entry is what? I think it is 3 plus a. And then we got x2 as 1 minus 3a. 1 minus 3a. To x3 you had given an arbitrary value a, and x4 came out to be 1, if I'm not wrong. I think it was 1, right? Yeah, x4 was 1 here. So this gives you the set of all solutions. Consider any column, a is arbitrary here. So you give a value to a, you will get one solution. You give another value to a, you will get another solution. So you will get infinitely many solutions for a dash x equal to b dash. And since the previous proposition says that ax equal to b and a dash x equal to b dash will have the same solutions, this set will also give you all the solutions of ax equal to b. This is roughly how we are going to solve the systems, but we will give precisely the method, like when we will be giving the arbitrary values to which variables I have to give the arbitrary values. Why can't I give the arbitrary value to x1? Why did I give the value to x3 itself? All that we will sort it out in the next class.